So in the last lecture, we did the translation initiation and elongation. Now we are moving on to the third step of translation, that is termination. So as the elongation cycle is going on, you can see this polypeptide chain. This is being elongated. Amino acids are being attached to each other with the help of a peptide bond. And this will continue till the time any one of the stop codon reaches the A site. Now, once any of the three stop codons, UAG, UAA, and UGA, any of these three stop codons, when they reach the A site, what happens is that in the cell, there is no transfer RNA having anticodons complementary to any one of the three stop codons. So a cell does not have any transfer RNA which can bind to these stop codons, and therefore it will not code for any amino acid. So a transfer RNA is not able to bind to the A site now because it is not available to bind. And what will bind here is known as a release factor. There are three release factors in prokaryotic translation termination: release factor 1, release factor 2, and release factor 3. So these release factors will bind to the A site. As you can see in this picture, the release factor, it looks like a transfer RNA. So structurally, it is similar to a transfer RNA. The difference is that there will be no amino acid attached because it's not a transfer RNA. So there will be no amino acid attached. Instead, there is a molecule of water that is attached on the release factor. So once this release factor binds to the A site, again, the peptidyl transferase enzyme will cleave the polypeptide chain, which is present at the transfer RNA of the P site, and this chain will be transferred to the water molecule that is present on the release factor. So hydrolysis takes place. Now, hydrolysis of this bond, which links the transfer RNA and the polypeptide chain, takes place with the help of the enzyme that is peptidyl transferase. So the whole chain will be transferred onto the water molecule. So it will be hydrolyzed and the amino acid chain will be released. So once this amino acid chain is released, that means now the translation has stopped or it has terminated. So the transfer RNA, which is at the E site, that is also does not have any amino acid now. It has given its amino acid. The transfer RNA at the P site also has given its amino acid chain to the water molecule, and therefore these two transfer RNA molecules are released. So this molecule from the E site is released, the molecule from the P site is released, the polypeptide chain is released, and then what happens is that the ribosome subunits, they will separate from each other. So the small subunit, the large subunit, they separate from each other. Messenger RNA will be released and the release factor is also released. Now to the small subunit, that is the 30S ribosomal subunit, then the two factors will bind, which are those. We have initiation factor 1 and initiation factor 3. They bind to the 30S subunit and the 30S subunit will remain separated from the 50S subunit. So how to summarize termination of translation? Now, when any of the stop codon reaches the A site, there is no transfer RNA that recognizes the stop codons. Therefore, a factor binds, and that factor is known as a release factor. Now, this release factor catalyzes the hydrolysis of the bond linking the transfer RNA in the P site with the polypeptide chain. So this hydrolysis reaction will free the polypeptide chain. The polypeptide chain will be released from the ribosome. The empty transfer RNA or the deacylated transfer RNA or those transfer RNA which now do not have any amino acid attached, they are also released. The ribosomal subunits will separate from each other. The messenger RNA molecule will also be released. The release factor will be released and translation will terminate. Now moving on to translation in eukaryotes. That's a translation mechanism. I told you in the last lecture, that's a universal mechanism. It takes place in prokaryotes as well as in eukaryotes. It takes place in all the living organisms. And the mechanism is also almost same in all living organisms, with difference in certain factors which are involved, and the difference mainly in the initiation step of eukaryotic and prokaryotic translation process. So in prokaryotic cell, we know that transcription and translation take place simultaneously. As transcription is going on, as the mRNA is being synthesized, translation begins on the messenger RNA molecule, and it begins, or the ribosome attaches at a specific site, which is known as a Shine-Dalgarno sequence. Now, in eukaryotic cell, transcription has to take place inside the nucleus and translation will occur in the cytoplasm. So there are certain differences. Firstly, the RNA molecule undergoes certain kind of processing, which we've already completed in the post-transcriptional modifications. This RNA molecule will then come out of the nucleus, enter into the cytoplasm, and now it has to bind to the ribosomes. Now, what difference here is that messenger RNA in the eukaryotic system, it does not have any Shine-Dalgarno sequence. So to recognize the ribosome, to bind to the ribosome, you remember it has a cap. It has a cap present at the 5' end. So major difference in the translation of prokaryotic and eukaryotic system is mainly at the initiation step. Elongation and termination almost take place in a similar manner. The difference is in the factors which are involved. Now again, before initiation or preceding the initiation step, there will be activation where the amino acids are activated. The activated amino acid are attached to the transfer RNA. And this step, it occurs in the same way as it does in prokaryotes. So I'm not repeating the step here again. We did it in prokaryotes. It occurs in the same way as in the prokaryotic system. So I come directly to initiation here. Now, initiation in eukaryotes, the translation initiation in eukaryotes is a complex process, and it involves at least 10 initiation factors. Now, these initiation factors preceding to IF, we write a small e. And small e means we are talking about the eukaryotic system. So we did in prokaryotes, there are 3 initiation factors. We have IF1, IF2, and IF3. In contrast, in the eukaryotic system, there are at least 10 initiation factors designated as EIFs, where E stands for eukaryotes, I stands for initiation, F stands for factors. Now, this initiation step is further divided into 3 sub-steps. First thing is the formation of the 43S pre-initiation complex. So this will involve the 40S ribosomal subunit with the initiation factors and the binding of the initiator transfer RNA. So the first step is the formation of a pre-initiation complex, which is also known as a 43S complex, followed by the formation of the 48S initiation complex. When it will join to the messenger RNA, it will search for the initiation codon and it will be ready for the binding of the 60S ribosomal subunit. Now, once these 2 complexes have been completed, then the 60S ribosomal subunit will join, all the initiation factors will be released, and we get the final initiation complex, which is known as the 80S initiation complex. So here initiation is taking place in 3 sub-steps. The first one is a formation of a 43S molecule. Now, as in prokaryotes, in the eukaryotic system also, ribosomal subunits remain separated from each other. Remember, I told you if the ribosomal subunits they join to each other without the messenger RNA already joined, we get a dead end complex, which there can be no translation. So in the eukaryotic system also, the 80S ribosome is present as a small subunit, which is 40S, and large subunit, which is 60S. Now to the 40S subunit, there are two initiation factors bound. One is initiation factor 3. We write it as EIF3. And there is an initiation factor 1A. Now, these two factors, they bind to the 40S subunit. The function of these two factors is to avoid the binding of the 40S with the 60S subunit until translation has to take place. So 40S subunit is synthesized on the nucleolus, and as it is synthesized, it will bind to two factors. One is IF3 and one is IF1A. These two factors block its reassociation with the 60S subunit until it has first attached to an initiator tRNA, it is attached to a messenger RNA molecule, then only these two factors will be released and the 60S subunit is allowed to bind to the 40S subunit. So this is a complete ribosome subunit. Again, there are same two sites. We have the P site, we have the A site, and there will be an exit site. Same three sites that we did in the prokaryotic system as well. Now, these ribosomes, they always remain dissociated inside the cell. And to avoid the binding of 40S and 60S subunit, there are two factors. One is initiation factor 3 and the other is initiation factor 1A. Now, these two factors, they remain bound to the 40S subunit, prevents its binding to the 60S subunit until translation has to take place. So now when translation has to take place, what happens is the first step is the formation of a pre-initiation complex, which is also known as the 43S complex. Now this 43S complex is a ternary complex. Ternary का मतलब हमें पता है तीन components होंगे इसमें. What are these three components? There is a initiator transfer RNA. Initiation codon we know is AUG. AUG codes for methionine. So the initiator tRNA is the MET tRNA. Now when we write MET tRNA, we mean that there is a transfer RNA which is specific for methionine and it has a bound methionine to the 3' end. So this MET tRNA, as in the prokaryotic system, here also requires a factor for binding, and that factor is initiation factor 2. So what binds here is the initiator tRNA, a molecule of initiation factor 2, and a molecule of GTP as a source of energy which is required here. So these three molecules, they attach to the 40S ribosomal subunit, which is already bound to two initiation factors. Remember, one is IF3 and one is IF1A. So 40S ribosomal subunit already in the cell is present as a complex between 40S, IF3 and IF1A. This complex then binds to three molecules. One is the initiator tRNA, there is a molecule of IF2, and there is a molecule of GTP. The whole complex is known as a 43S pre-initiation complex. So this is how it is. 40S subunit already has two initiation factors attached. Then it binds to three components as a complex, which is known as a ternary complex. We have the initiator tRNA, we have initiation factor 2, and we have a molecule of GTP. All this joins to the 40S subunit to give us the pre-initiation complex, which is known as the 43S complex. Next step is the formation of the 48S initiation complex. That means here, now what is to be bound is the messenger RNA molecule. Now, once this messenger RNA molecule binds to the 43S pre-initiation complex, we get a complex which is known as 48S initiation complex. So 43S pre-initiation complex, which already has the initiator tRNA attached, it has the initiation factors attached, it has a molecule of GTP. Now this complex has to search for the messenger RNA. It has to bind to the messenger RNA. And once it binds to the messenger RNA, we get a complex which is known as a 48S initiation complex. Now this messenger RNA is recognized as the cap. So there is a cap binding protein, and that cap binding protein is known as the initiation factor 4F complex. So it's not a single molecule. It is a combination of different initiation factors, which is known as the IF4F complex. So this IF4F complex is formed by the association of IF4G, IF4A, and IF4E. These three molecules, they join together to form a complex that is known as the IF4F complex. This complex binds to the cap at the 5' end of the eukaryotic messenger RNA molecule. This complex will then help to recognize the 43S pre-initiation complex. So we have the messenger RNA. Eukaryotic messenger RNA has a cap at the 5' end. That cap is recognized by certain protein complexes, which are known as cap binding protein. This complex is the IF4F complex. This IF4F complex has got three initiation factors. One is IF4G, we have IF4A, and we have IF4E. So they bind to the cap. So this is how they bind. There is a cap binding protein. This is a complex which I've told you. Along with a molecule of ATP, it binds to the cap region present on the messenger RNA. This is the initiation codon, AUG. At the 5' end, there is a cap. The complex, IF4F complex, will recognize the cap. It will bind to the cap along with the molecule of ATP. And then this binds to the pre-initiation complex. So once all these molecules bind to each other, this thing, when it binds to each other, we get the initiation complex, which is known as 48S initiation complex. Now one factor more binds, one that is initiation factor 4B. This joins with the initiation factor 4A, and both these factors help to bind to the messenger RNA molecule to reduce the complex structure of the messenger RNA molecule. So this messenger RNA molecule is then transferred to the pre-initiation complex, and for the proper association, we also require energy. That is a molecule of ATP that I said, along with the cap binding protein binds a molecule of ATP. Now, once this 48S initiation complex is formed, it will scan the messenger RNA. That is, it will slide on the messenger RNA to identify the initiation codon, which is AUG. So once this complex binds to the cap region of the messenger RNA molecule, now its function is to identify the first codon, that is the AUG codon, which will be coding for methionine. But what I've written here is appropriate. Appropriate means the first AUG might not be the initiation codon. The initiation codon has to be present in a correct frame. It's present as a correct consensus sequence. Only that AUG will be recognized as the initiation codon. So जरूरी नहीं है कि जो पहला AUG मिला इस कॉम्प्लेक्स को वहीं से वो ट्रांसलेशन स्टार्ट कर देगा. जो AUG codon है that should be present as a proper sequence, as a proper consensus sequence. And this hypothesis was given by Marilyn Kozak. It's also known as a Kozak scanning hypothesis, wherein Marilyn Kozak in 1983 stated that the 48S pre-initiation complex that has to find the correct AUG. And that correct AUG means it should be in a proper sequence. It should be in a proper consensus sequence. So what was stated in this hypothesis is that the first AUG might not be the initiation codon. The AUG, which will act as a first codon, should be present in a proper consensus sequence. And that consensus sequence is, it should start with a purine. That means it can either be an adenine or a guanine, followed by any of the four nitrogenous bases. It can be any of the purines or the pyrimidines, any nucleotide. Again, followed by any nucleotide, followed by AUG. So this is the initiation codon ending with a guanine. So if it is present in this frame, if it is present in this sequence, then the AUG will be recognized as a initiation codon. So at the 5 prime, the complex is binding. Then that complex moves on the messenger RNA molecule. It scans the messenger RNA molecule for the first codon that should be present in a proper sequence. This hypothesis was proposed in 1983 by Marilyn Kozak, and it's also known as the Kozak's scanning hypothesis. Once it has found the correct AUG, now what is left is the binding of the 60S ribosomal subunit. So we'll get the final complex, which is the initiation complex, also known as the 80S initiation complex. And that is by the binding of the 60S ribosomal subunit to the 48S initiation complex. So once the 48S initiation complex has formed, it has scanned the messenger RNA, it has found the correct AUG. Now it binds to the large subunit, and this binding requires energy. And that energy will come from the hydrolysis of GTP. GTP that is bound to initiation factor 2. Remember, IF2 binds with a molecule of GTP. Now here the GTP will be hydrolyzed to GDP, and the initiation factor 2 as a GDP molecule will be released, and the 60S ribosomal subunit will bind with the help of another initiation factor, which is known as IF5. The 60S ribosomal subunit binds with the help of initiation factor 5. This initiation factor 5 helps in the hydrolysis of GTP, giving energy for the binding of the 60S ribosomal subunit. And when this 60S ribosomal subunit binds, the complex now is known as the 80S initiation complex. Now, because the 60S subunit has bound, the initiation factors, everything which has already bound to the 40S subunit will be released, and they will be reused by the cell. So I've shown this here in the picture. This is your 48S initiation complex. Now the 60S subunit has to bind, and it binds with the help of the initiation factor 5. This initiation factor 5 hydrolyzes GTP into GDP and helps in the attachment of the 60S subunit. As the 60S subunit attaches, all the initiation factors which are attached to the 48S initiation complex will be released, and we get the final initiation complex, which is known as the 80S initiation complex. So here, the initiation part is complete. Now what we have is the 80S initiation complex. We have the messenger RNA, which is attached properly on the ribosome. We have the initiator tRNA, which is attached on the P site of the ribosome. So now what is left is the A site is free. Elongation step I'll tell you, is exactly the same as happens in the prokaryotic system. The elongation cycle goes in the same way. We also call it the reaction cycle. The difference is the elongation factors, name of the elongation factors, in fact. राइट, तो मैकेनिज्म बिल्कुल सेम है, इलोंगेशन फैक्टर्स का नाम डिफरेंट है, वो मैं आपको बताती हूँ, और स्टेप्स भी बिल्कुल सेम है। जो स्टेप्स हमने प्रोकैरियोटिक ट्रांसलेशन इलोंगेशन में किए थे, वही सेम स्टेप्स यहाँ पर भी हैं। दैट इज ए साइट इज फ्री, सो अमाइनो एसिड tRNA is brought to the A site, it is bound to the A site. Elongation factor here is known as EF1 alpha. वहां आपको याद है हमने क्या बोला था, EFTU, यहाँ पे हम उसको बोल रहे हैं EF1 अल्फा। सो EF1 अल्फा एंड EF1 बीटा गामा, इनका काम है अमाइनो एसिड tRNA को A साइट तक लेके आना, to help in the binding of the amino acyl tRNA to the A site using energy, and then be released from the A site for the elongation cycle to continue. Once the A site is filled, the next step is also the same. That is, peptide bond is formed between the two amino acids. The enzyme is the same, that is peptidyl transferase. The peptidyl transferase activity is present in the large ribosomal subunit. Here it is present in the 60S subunit. And the part of 60S subunit which has this activity is the 28S rRNA. Once peptide bond is formed, the third step is also the same, and that step is translocation. There, translocation is performed by EFG. Here, translocation is performed by EF2. So that is the difference. The mechanism will be the same. So 80S initiation complex है हमारे पास. It contains the initiator tRNA in the P site right now. A site or A slot is free. So in the A slot, amino acyl tRNA is placed according to what codon is there in the A site. So according to the proper codon recognition on the messenger RNA, an amino acyl tRNA is placed in the A site. And this is brought by elongation factor, which is known as EF1 alpha, and a molecule of GTP, because binding will require energy, and that energy will come from the hydrolysis of GTP. So now this amino acyl tRNA, using energy of GTP hydrolysis, is properly placed in the A site. This elongation factor 1 alpha is then recycled. So again, there is an exchange factor here. That exchange factor is known as EF1 beta gamma. So EF1 beta gamma will replace the GDP. It will bind to EF1 alpha, and then it will get exchanged for a molecule of GTP. We again get EF1 alpha and a GTP molecule. It will again go and start looking for the another amino acyl tRNA. And the cycle will continue till the time any of the stop codon reaches the A site. So the cycle is known as an elongation cycle or the reaction cycle. Once this step is complete, the next step is again the peptide bond formation. That is catalyzed by the enzyme peptidyl transferase. The mechanism of formation of this peptide bond is exactly the same that we did in prokaryotic system. So this enzyme activity is present in the 28S rRNA of the 60S ribosomal subunit. So again, this is acting as a ribozyme. The RNA which is acting as enzyme, this will catalyze the formation of the peptide bond between the amino acids. Now, once peptide bond is formed, the initiator tRNA now is free. So P site tRNA is free. It has already donated its amino acid to the A site. The A site has accepted its amino acid. So now the tRNA on the P site does not have any amino acid attached. The tRNA on the A site has got two amino acids attached. And now the ribosome has to move to the next codon in the messenger RNA molecule. The movement is known as translocation, and translocation movement requires energy. That energy comes from GTP hydrolysis, and this GTP comes with a molecule of factor 2. So movement of the ribosome to the next codon of messenger RNA, that is known as translocation. The tRNA from the A site will move to the P site. The tRNA from the P site will move to the E site. And all these movements require energy, and that comes from hydrolysis of GTP. And this GTP comes with a molecule of elongation factor 2. So EF2 and GTP complex, it is recycled for translocation process. In eukaryotes, the rate of addition of amino acid is per second. There are 6 amino acid incorporated during elongation step of translation in eukaryotes. So the rate is 6 amino acids per second are added. So this cycle, or the elongation cycle with the formation of peptide bond and translocation, these 3 steps will keep on continuing in a cyclic manner till a stop codon reaches the A site. So again, same thing, stop codon reaching the A site, there is no tRNA available in the cell which has anticodons complementary to any of the 3 stop codons. So there is no tRNA available to bind to the A site on the ribosome. So what will bind? Again, there is a release factor that binds. Eukaryotic systems have only one release factor, which recognizes all the 3 stop codons. And that release factor is known as RF1. But the activity of this release factor is stimulated by RF3. Stimulated means RF3 will bring the energy for the binding of this release factor and for the termination of the process of translation. So 2 factors are involved in termination. Release factor 1, which will recognize all the 3 stop codons, and release factor 3, which will stimulate the termination of translation. Now, once this release factor binds, ribosomal subunits, that is 40S subunit, will separate from the 60S subunit. Both the subunits will be separated. To the small subunit, initiation factors will bind so that it does not associate back with the large subunit. Polypeptide chain is released. The transfer RNA, जिनका काम over हो गया है, they are also released, and the messenger RNA will also be released. These ribosomes are then recycled. They are reused for another process of translation. So that is how the translation will terminate. So this is what is happening here. This is one of the stop codons, UAA. UAA is one of the stop codon. For this stop codon, the cell does not have any transfer RNA. Therefore, what binds is the release factor 1 along with the molecule of GTP, and that is contained in the release factor 3. So termination is stimulated by release factor 3. Release factor 1 binds. Same steps takes place. Hydrolysis of the polypeptide chain will take place. Polypeptide chain will be released. The tRNA, which do not have any amino acid, will be released from the E site and the P site. The ribosomal subunits will separate. The release factors will be released, that is RF1, RF3, and a molecule of GDP attached to RF3 will be released, and the process of translation will terminate. So this is how translation takes place in the prokaryotic as well as in the eukaryotic system. You revise initiation, elongation, and termination, both in the prokaryotes as well as in the eukaryotes. and we'll take up doubts in the next lecture. When you revise all this, you can ask me the doubts. I will clear all your doubts in the next lecture. Thank you.